we feel very confident that Discovery Plus is very well placed to be within that streaming step that people might want to curate for their own viewing, because to Myriam's point, there isn't another service that delivers that kind of clarity of message and that very clean concept of the one place to get all of your real life entertainment.
How are you making sure users are connecting with the content they're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Andrew. I mean, that is basically, I spend probably half my time with my partners talking about that exact question. Metadata ingest, the ability to provide your content in such a way that it is attributable to Discovery Plus, but also visible to a viewer as soon as they turn on, is a kind of a key question. And something that sort of preoccupies a lot of my time at the moment is making sure, exactly to your point, that if a subscriber or a viewer turns on their TV set or whichever viewing device they're looking at, that somewhere on that first landing page there is a Discovery Plus logo, or there is some content which is attributed to Discovery Plus. And the key element for me is the extent to which that content is surfaced, or that reel, potentially that promo, is surfaced, irrespective of whether or not you're a subscriber as yet or not. So that's something that we have a lot of discussions, healthy discussions with our partners around, is that we ideally want to operate in a world whereby if you are a subscriber and you click on a content asset, it takes you straight through into the app and you can start viewing straight away. But if you're not existing, or you're not a current Discovery Plus subscriber, it gives you the opportunity to inject them straight into a sign-up journey, so that immediately at the end that you can capture them at the point where they're most interested in the piece of content. So that kind of thing is highly important for us, and so prominence on the UX is a key part of all the discussions that we're having. And also then, there are other ways in which we look to do that. So we've used the red button functionality from our linear channels to great effect. So we've seen that with a number of our partners now, that we obviously have a very captive audience with people who view our linear channels and engage with our linear channels and have done for a number of years. They may be pay or they may be free to air channels, but by having that red button functionality, which every so often pops up, if you like this, watch more at Discovery Plus, or language to that effect, and they can click on the red button and it again drives them through either into the app or into the sign up journey, has been particularly successful for us in terms of driving acquisition.
That's great. I don't think they have that in the US, so that's a really interesting feature. But it also does get to this issue of, prior to this year, when we thought about Discovery, we thought of it as a linear channel business and a very global business. But to some degree, you have to wonder whether the growth of Discovery Plus cannibalizes the linear channels, especially when here in the US, obviously there's heavy promotion on the channels that go to Discovery Plus. There's no red button, but here you're literally, pulling them out of linear to go to streaming. So are you not hurting your linear business?
It's a great, Myriam, I was going to say, Myriam can talk very much to the kind of the ratings and the performance that we've seen over half one this year that would dispute that. But it's the obvious question, right? Are you cannibalizing your linear channels by creating a service? We always say that we believe that Plus complements, not cannibalizes our linear channels. Of course we would, being the provider of both, but I am pleased to say that we have not yet seen that. We truly believe that the strength of our linear brands, plus Discovery Plus being quite a different proposition, in that there is the volume of content that you can access via Discovery Plus and the breadth of content. It's super serving linear fans, but it's also creating a different opportunity for a cord never, cord cutter, etc., who potentially has never engaged with that sort of content. So we're actually seeing that they're complementing each other really well. And Myriam can sort of share some details in terms of our linear performance to sort of back that up.
No, it's absolutely right. At least for now, we're not only not seeing that it's cannibalizing, but I think in Europe we are seeing that, particularly for us with very big, broad entertainment, free-to-air brands, it is helping kind of to drive subscription to, and find and help also to promote what Discovery Plus is, but also for those people that you were referring, Andrew, to discover the great IP that we have exclusively in the platform. On the linear portfolio, in the case of EMEA, we've seen a strong performance this year, with Q1 21 proving the third highest quarter ever for average audiences. And some of our markets like the UK, France, or Bulgaria recorded their highest ever quarter in audience volumes. So we are being able to manage that kind of growth and ambitious kind of subscriber month-on-month kind of growth, whilst we are sustaining results on linear, possibly because of that unique differentiation that we have in Europe, to being able to use our reach to really promote Discovery Plus with what in essence is a distinctive incremental content offering. So we are not really taking away from the brands, and we are continuing to commission as well and nurture our offer for linear. It's just that it's distinctively presented in a different way. We are doing younger formats, edgier concepts. Our filters for commissioning are slightly bit different. We do more mashups about content. We think about how maybe an ID consumer and maybe a sports consumer can actually be matched together. What if we do crime and corruption and sports, or what if we bring stories of true crime in a more arced way? So I think as we see Discovery Plus targeting kind of edgier, younger audiences, we don't really see that kind of as a cannibalization, but a great opportunity for us in Europe specifically, where we have very big broadcast networks as well.
At the moment, I think we feel very confident that Discovery Plus is very well placed to be within that streaming set that people might want to curate for their own viewing, because to Myriam's point, there isn't another service that delivers that kind of clarity of message and that very clean concept of the one place to get all of your real life entertainment at a good value price.
Well, of course, if we're talking about being positioned for consolidation, we should acknowledge that there is a pending merger with Warner Media that could very well radically change Discovery's competitive positioning. But of course, you guys aren't exactly prepared yet to talk about what that means, and we got to see that deal go through. But getting back to what we're doing here, Myriam, Lydia had mentioned COVID, and I'm curious, you could argue that not just for Discovery, all streaming services, that in a way, the timing of your launch during the pandemic advantaged Discovery at a time where people are spending more time at home and looking for new programming options. Do you get the sense that there may have been a boost there as a result of the pandemic? And what does it mean as we hopefully move away from that, and what challenge that might bring?
It's a very good question. I guess obviously we all know that COVID has really changed dynamics in terms of consumption. I think food levels have gone up for the first time in many markets as a result. And we'll probably see kind of the trend of like normalizing consumption both on free and streaming in the next coming months, hopefully, because that would mean that we are out of what has been a really, really challenging time for many, many people. But the reality is that we have learned a lot as well there has been a lot of disruption, and I think it's accelerated as well trends of making sure that you need to be even more competitive in terms of like offering the best quality IP. That is actually what distinguishes you. And once people has discovered maybe the service, and yes, for sure, there has been an advantage of obviously being all at home and locked down, and as I was saying, referring to those trends. But I think it actually it's been healthy for us to make sure that you really have to provide very good quality. I think it's not only about the numbers of players out there, or the number of hours that we have on offer, but creatively we have them in order to sustain those numbers, and we are hoping to do so. There is some trends I think that have been interesting as well. Less for us, I guess, because we are the home of unscripted, but obviously movie releases in maybe let's see what happens with the theatrical windows in the future. There has been an increased appetite for unscripted. It was faster to produce, and we've seen increased competition in spaces like true crime or reality, where we've been dominating in Europe for many years. And I think it's exciting to be surrounded by people that is attracted to your proposition, but obviously it means that we have to really not only become the best destination for consumers to find a strong and scripted storytelling, but also become good partners to creators and producers and distributors, so that they want to bring those stories to us first. So I think it will change in the sense of, let's make sure that in the same way that Lydia and the team are partnering very closely with those affiliates and carriers, that the relationship has changed. I think the relationship is also shifting in the creative side to bring, to offer those creators the possibility of doing stories in a different way, and telling stories that they never had told before. So I think it's an exciting time for the consumer overall, and that's what we want.